Tapalia, President of KYS Karmayogi Sanstha in Cholapur, and here I am to talk to you about how one should approach as a first year MBBS student to the academics, to the exams, and the rest of the curricular, co-curricular discussion. So this was out of request by many of them for many a times in the last 15 days regarding this topic, and so we are today having a discussion about this here in brief in the next 25 to 30 minutes. So I would like to begin with a few backgrounds and references that I am talking to today. The first reference is we being in medical fraternity, it is said that it is one of the noblest professions that ever exist on this planet. Second thing about this profession is what is said is it is of the creamy most layer of the society. And the third thing what I think is we people being a part of the medical education system of India. Because if you compare the medical education system of other countries, it is far more heroic. As compared to other countries, the Indian medical education system has a lot in person, or hands-on, etc. So these are the three references with which I am talking to you today. And with this background, with these references, which play a dual role of responsibility as well as rights, perks and responsibilities, I mean. So if you take these points one by one, we would realize that being into the medical education system in India as a noble profession and as a creamy most society, you have rights and responsibilities. And with rights, you think life of a doctor is very posh. A non-medical person often says कि doctor बन रहा है मतलब अभी ये छापेगा. And this is how the narrative goes on, and we also get carried away with things. Then when you enter into the medical college, at that time you realize that इधर तो scene अलग ही है. You have 19 subjects served on the plate, and it's very difficult for you to get into the flow first. And once you get into the flow, then it becomes easier. But how to get into the flow also matters. For example, if you want to get down from a moving train, it's very important how you do it. If you try to get down in the opposite direction, then what will happen? You will fall. If you get down perpendicular to the train moving, again there are chances that you may fall. But if you go with the inertia in a way that you get down, balancing your momentum, it becomes very easy for you. Now, here the role, the question, the aspect that stands is, how are we going to do this? What is the flow? Who are we, the passenger who has to get down? And how are we going to do that, in what direction? And when we are answering these questions, it is very important that we consider the global, national and state scenario. If we try to remain in the puddle as that of a frog and try to jump there, and we are becoming happy कि मैंने आज अपनी ही गड्ढे के अंदर थोड़ा ऊंचा कूदा, then we are making faulty satisfactions of ourselves. It is very important and crucial that we approach in a way to this system, to this board, to this nexus at national and international standards. Now, as already discussed, that being into the medical fraternity of Indian system currently, this is one of the great assets that we have. I would not like to name the countries because it would become a questionable scene for me. But we all know what I am trying to point out when it comes to the standards of education in India. For people who just want to pass, is not a tough job. For people who just want to gain some knowledge so that practice chal jaye, zindagi nikal jaye, is again not difficult. And people who are very much passionate and who are mad about reading, knowing human physiology, anatomy, pathology, medicine, surgery, for them also it is not difficult because they are passion-driven people. But for most of us who want to manage both these things, that is passion, exam, service to society, and modes of income, etc. Then in that case, we need to concentrate on the discussion that we are going to do. Now, so with these references and backgrounds, I would like to focus on a few initiations. Initiations are when we enter a medical college, you have 5.5 years. See, one important reference is to whomever we want to focus. Okay, to whomever, in the sense I am talking not about the person but about the scenario. To whichever scenario we want to focus, whatever aim and objective we have, great people have always followed one approach, and that approach is what? Of long-term visions. I have been quoting this example many a times, where we have discussed about an individual, a great entrepreneur, the billionaire, trillionaire you can call, who is the head of the SpaceX, head of the X, and I'm talking about Elon Musk. And people have been asking, why is he so successful in such a short span of life? And he has been telling that I write my aims and objectives for the next 5 years, and then I try to think, how can I make them possible in just 1 year? This is the main approach, a win-win scenario for a person who wants to be successful. Before we discuss about being successful in our field, in our virtues, in our aims and objectives, let me redefine to you the definition of success. There are 3 terminologies which state: one is growth. Second is progress. And third is success. When you talk about growth, it is like the bacteria. For example, you want to earn money. You can either beg, borrow, steal, do whatever, not ethically right, and get money. That is growth. Yesterday you had 0 balance, today you have 10 CR. So this is growth. Growth with ethics defines progress. And growth with progress, that is growth with ethics, that is progress, with service and spirituality defines success. When there is a characteristic feature of repaying back to the society selflessness in the course of growth with ethics, then it becomes success. So growth plus ethics is progress. Progress plus selflessness and spirituality is success. These are crucial for me to state because I believe that I am talking to one of the most accountable and responsible citizens and clinicians of this nation. And in this regard, when I mentioned the example of Elon Musk, I want to quote that when the formula of successfulness asks you to plan for the next 5 years, for the next decade, there where your planning starts in regard to your first year, your first term and the first chapter that you want to study. And if we are able to align all these subjects of matters concerned in a single line of trajectory which we want to achieve at the end of this decade, then this discussion stands true and worthful. In the next 5.5 years of your MBBS, you cover 1 year, that is almost 9 months as first year studying the basic sciences. The second year we study the alterations in these basic sciences. And the third year, that is the final, like the minor and major, it covers all the applied clinical, practical aspects of doctor-patient dealings. And if you focus on these 3 segments of your MBBS, of course added with the internship, then you realize that your first year forms the foundation of whatever you want to study in the years next to come. If you consider the genuine mentality, the genuine faith of patient care, you would realize that if you want to apply this knowledge, it is of extreme importance that you should know the normalities and abnormalities of whatever you are discussing. More than what has to be given to the patient, a doctor has to be alert what not to be given to the patient. And for that, we need to know the normalities. Today, the scenario is very weird. When a patient comes with complaints of headache, we directly prescribe him CT scan. When a patient comes with normal, when I say normal, I mean the URTI, which is secondary to seasonal changes, etc., the spring or the autumn. They often prescribe antibiotics and heavy antibiotics to this. So, gaining the right knowledge, utilizing it at the right time for right person in the right scenario is the justice to the knowledge gained. And for this, it is most important that you gain knowledge of extreme importance, which forms the basis and foundation. Now, coming down to the first year discussion, you have three subjects: anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry. These three subjects have special approaches. When you want to study them, they have special approaches. Anatomy deals with the structural discussion, physiology deals with the functional discussion, and biochemistry deals with the biochemical discussions at the biomolecular level in your body. So basically it's very natural. For example, take an example of a house. When you want to build a house, you first see कि इसका ढांचा कैसा होना चाहिए. How should be its formation. Secondary to which you see how would be its functionality. You will try to formulate the inner engineering of your house, the inner formalities of your house in a way as per the requirement that you need to function in the day-to-day life. And that comes from physiology. And the small aspects, like where has to be the wardrobe, where have to be the pipe connections, where have to be the bulbs, where have to be the light, study lamp, table, etc. This is a kind of dealings of biochemistry. And all three are very crucial. I have observed in the last 7 years as a student and as a medico that people who want to be into the surgical zone are very much interested in anatomy, but they far much ignore the subjects of physiology and biochemistry. To the contrary, the people who don't like blood, the people who don't like the cutting, shredding of tissues, muscles, etc. Those people often try to focus on physiology and biochemistry. Now the discussion is, how far is this approach valid? Both the approaches are indefinitely not valid, because even if we are emotionally strong, we still listen to the brain, and even if we are emotionally weak, we still listen to the heart, because our system works in harmony. It works in holistic approach. And so the three subjects are not different, rather they are intermingled and intercoordinated. And when we learn this key of learning the three subjects, I will tell you, it would be the most memorable year of yours in the complete curriculum of MBBS. Now, to come down to the points of studying. Anatomy is all about diagrams, pictures, which I have been repeatedly saying. When I mention diagrams and pictures, it means you must have an atlas when you study. It means that you must concentrate on the dissection hours that you spend in the dissection hall. And it also means that when you study, it has to be just and just diagram based. In Hindi they say, जो दिखता नहीं वो बिकता नहीं, and anatomy is all about that. If you are operating and if you are not able to see a particular structure, how would it be possible that you would ever be able to operate on it? Now there can be two instances. One, exist ही नहीं करता. Second, हमको पता ही नहीं है. When it is exist ही नहीं करता, at that time you are helpless. Either you have to research something new or you have to find some alternative. To its contrast, which is the greater scenario कि हमको पता नहीं है, somewhere we lack, somewhere we miss out things, and that is because of just focusing on very ultra important things, which people are often a victim of the mentality of exam based education system. I often say that one has to come out of the exam holiday cycle in order to learn the subject in the true sense. हमारा कैसे चलता है, छुट्टी है, एंजॉय किया, फिर एंजॉय किया, एग्जाम आया, 10 दिन पहले स्टार्ट किया. Things cannot work like this. They demand continuity from you. They demand sincerity from you. And I tell you, this experience of my years is sincerity in medical education beats talent. Sincerity beats talent. So we were discussing about anatomy, and it says that it has to be all pictorized and diagrammatized. And when it comes to diagrams, now the thing is, we have a bad habit of reading from the first letter to the last full stop of the textbook. Whatever chapter has been taught to us, whatever we are expected to know, first of all, you should visit the MUHS website of first year syllabus, the link of first year syllabus, which in detail explains to you about desirable to know, good to know, and must to know. You must take a printout of it and study accordingly as per the feasibility of time. Now, second thing is, you must concentrate on things that you are expected to, must to know. The second is good to know, and the third is desirable to know. And in this sequence, as per the management of your time, you should focus on the topics. And the questions that have been asked in the last 10, 15, 20 years are those questions which cover more than 80%, 90% of your syllabus. And those are the topics of extreme importance when it comes to clinical approach and application. And so those IMPs, people try to make ultra IMP 5-star, 7-star, superstar and whatnot just to clear the exams. But then this approach is a little, hazardous to both to the individual as well as to the patient he will be treating. So when it comes to anatomy, it has to be diagram based. When you read something into theoretical aspects of concepts, you must have a parallel reciprocating diagram in that regard, undoubtedly. When it comes to physiology, it's all about the processes. It's all about the flow charts. For example, the cardiac cycle. So cardiac cycle is a combination of the systolic and diastolic part. There are 8 steps. How many in the systole? How many in the diastole? Pehle, what will happen initially when the heart is resting in diastole? Blood is passively coming into the right atrium, left atrium, and then it will go down. And then 8 steps, one by one, which valves will open when. You have already studied this in brief in your 12th standard. So physiology deals with all this normal functionality which comes in a sequence. For example, if you want to go to your medical college institute from your home, you often remember the whole process, right? I am going to leave my house. Then I get down from 3rd floor to the ground floor. Then I get out of the main gate. Then I take a left. Then I take a left. Then I go straight. Then I take a right. Then I go left. And this way you reach the institute. So biochemistry is all about this discussion. Which discussion? About all the landmarks. And physiology is all about the process. Now, when it comes to biochemistry, it is more dealing with the biochemical functionality. For example, when you eat food, it gets digested. So what are the enzymes? When that food gets into, for example, if it is glucose, and you learn about glycolysis Krebs cycle. Now, there are so many molecules that form in the intermediate process as a cycle. Is it possible for you to remember all of them? For an instance, you can take an example that from here you want to go to your institute, and then if someone tells you as a truth and dare game that you have to remember all the shops in sequence across 1 kilometer till you reach your institute, it is very difficult and practically impossible. So what is the solution out there? You would remember the main landmarks of all the shops that come in between in 1 kilometer. So similarly, in biochemistry, you remember the rate limiting steps, the steps which are of extreme importance and the steps which play a crucial significant role in forming the product or utilizing the reactant, that is the initial product, gross material, any enzyme or any preformed product, etc. So moral of the story is कि उसमें जो landmarks हैं वो आपको याद रखना, and that comes with practice and with application. For example, this is the rate limiting enzyme, and this enzyme, absence of which causes XYZ syndrome. So this will be helpful to you in the approach of biochemistry. Now, the most important aspect of the whole discussion, the two aspects. One is the applied aspect. We are not learning to clear exams, we are not learning to remember more and more information, but we are learning to utilize this and apply this in terms of knowledge for patient care and benefit. And in this regard, the applied aspect of whatever we learn, whatever we remember, is of extreme significance. It would not be a crime if you remember or forget a name of a muscle or bone. But what would be its action? What would happen if the action of the muscle gets hampered? For an instance, if you take the example of respiratory muscles, there are both skeletal as well as smooth muscles, hampering of which can lead to respiratory distress, hampering of which can lead to hypoxia to the patient, and patient may succumb to death. So you may or may not remember the name of that muscle, but you need to know what is its nerve supply, what can be the reasons for hampering of the activity of those respiratory muscles. And so the approach has to be, reverse from applied to theoretical aspect. The functional, from functional to the structural aspect. And the second most important thing that I was discussing is time management. Some people who have started studying have realized that we just read one paragraph in 1 hour. They also realize that we are not able to cope up with the speed of the institute or the faculties that teach. Discussion remains very simple. We are expected to do what we are to do. The institute or the fraternity faculty is doing what they are expected to do. On paper, on record, they are expected to complete the syllabus in time. At the same time, we are expected to gain expected knowledge for its application. And there where the role of past year questions, good to know, must to know, desirable to know list is required. Often the chapters that are put into the timetable, they are of this importance only, and so they need to be followed. Now I will tell you the time management that I could live with, practice with in the 4.5 years of my MBBS, and I'll tell you it proved to be a great boon to me. Now a basic question is, what takes more time, whether it is to recall and write or to read? The answer is reading takes less time, recalling and writing takes more time. With a lot of statistics, you have about 15 to 20 minutes to write a 12 mark long question in exam, and about 10 to 12 minutes to write a 7 mark short question in the exam. Now details of which and of the time management of writing exam etc. can be discussed in another session. But comparing those timelines, if it takes 20 minutes for an instance for you to write a long question of 5 pages, after recalling, then it should not take more than 20 minutes for you to read about it. But because we are going to read for the first time, because we are going to understand for the first time, because we are going to do things for the first time, it is of extreme importance that we give weightage in terms of time to it. And in this regard, a ratio, a proportion has been drawn out that 3 times more time can be given for a concept to be understood with full-fledged, even when you start it right from the scratch. So if you want to write a question for 20 minutes, you can study for it for the next 60 minutes only. Now, how should be the approach for studying this pattern and following this pattern? In the first 5 minutes, you are expected to grossly overview the whole content. You are expected to grossly overview the whole content. Once you inspect the whole content and understand the layout of the whole chapter or topic or concept that you have to learn, at the same time in those 5 minutes you are also expected to mark those points, paragraphs, or make brackets to them, the ones that you want to read and include in your material. The next 15 to 20 minutes you are expected to read them meticulously, trying to make an attempt to understand every bit of the whole chapter concept that you are studying. And in the next 20 minutes or 25 minutes, you are expected to write down in the format of your notes the every bit. I am using the word the every bit, where I want to emphasize the article, stating that everything that you want to include in your answer, you want to know as a part of your knowledge system, must be included in that particular description in your notes in the next 25 minutes, with expected headings, flow charts, diagrams, labelings, whatsoever you want to do. And then in the last 5 minutes, you just go through your own notes that you have created in the last 25 minutes and complete the 1 hour bracket for studying one answer, one concept, one question, one detailed chapter, whatever. This is about the long question discussion, which will of course have more content. To its contrast, a short question of 7 marks, for example, you are expected to write histology of spleen. Just 30 minutes. Within 3-4 minutes you get an overview what you are expected to write, learn, understand. In the next 7 to 10 minutes, you try to read out and understand कि भाई हाँ इसमें ये सब capsular sinus है, lymphoid tissue है, lymphocyte का aggregation है, whatsoever. And in the next 12-15 minutes again you jot it down and just in 2-3 minutes you have an overview. Basically long question का जो discussion है, divide all the parameters by 2. And this is how you will be able to study in time, enjoy in time, enjoy learning, and at the same time you will be able to complete your syllabus in time. At the initial instance, to begin with, it is a little difficult. It is not possible to complete this discussion or practice this kind of approach in exactly 1 hour or so. And so you can extend your time to 1.25 hours or 1.5 hours or initially even 2 hours, and accordingly try to accustom, adjust your speed, practice and speeden up, and in a way that you would come to good results for completing your syllabus, acquiring knowledge and balancing your day-to-day activities. After completing the hectic schedule of lectures and practicals from 9 to 5, 6, it is really a little tedious, tiring and also a little boring to study for hours together to complete the syllabus that has been covered in 8 hours of your college. And so this strategy of 1 hour to every concept or chapter works very well to live all the parameters expected. And a rhythm of 2 to 3 questions per day. I am using the word questions so that you get accustomed to your exam preparations. Because if I say concept, it is very relative. Concept may be small or big, easy or difficult. But when I say a question, it undoubtedly covers the content of about 12 marks or so, which is never less than a chapter or a half. And so I feel that 2 to 3 long questions or 5 to 6 short questions would be a good start for you people on the working days and double during the non-working holiday time. And I am extremely sure that you will be able to complete all your syllabus with extreme efficiency and clarity of concepts well before the declared dates of exams, may it be internal or university. At least a week before. At least a week before. And this will be very useful for you to manage the no stress that you will achieve at the end of this phase of preparation. Because the often discussion that we come is people say kuch nahi rehta hai, ye nahi rehta hai, wo nahi rehta hai. And a straightforward question of mine to those people is, when we have come here to study, why bother about rest all the discussion? 3 घंटा अगर हमको पढ़ना है, 3 घंटा छोड़ के बाकी 24 घंटे में तुम दुनिया में आग लगाओ. That makes no difference. But when you are safe, suppose my income is 50,000 and my expenditure is 80,000. It's not going to work. If my expenses is 80,000, I must reserve that 80,000 first. Then I should think whether I can earn more or not. In the same way, दिन भर में मैं कॉलेज गया नहीं गया, मैंने कुछ किया नहीं किया, but those 3 hours, those 3 chapters is something that I must look into. And a very basic step towards this whole approach is get a book of last 10 years question patterns. Get a book that explains to you, the booklet on MUHS website, which explains to you the desirable topics, good to know topics and must to know topics, and mark them through and through the whole textbook for the whole syllabus of your year before Deepavali vacation. Now, this is the only task that you have to do and enjoy Deepavali and come back and then start studying. And I think that this strategy is an unbeatable strategy that I have been implementing in every year. And this has also enabled me to do a lot of activities of co-curricular significance, and the ones which were very near and dear to my heart. The ones of reaching out to the common man, the ones of doing something for the Mother Institute, and the ones of doing something for your near and dear ones as well. This also enables you to enjoy the parties, the treats, and the night outs that you want to do. And so, I think that this strategy would be of great importance to you as well. If you start an approach towards it in a very consistent, in a very prioritized, and in a very disciplined manner. If you are determined, dedicated to this approach, I'm sure that you will benefit from it leaps and bounds like I did, and would definitely leave an indelible mark in your batch and in the decade you learn. Last and most important thing, which is important for any project work to execute to its fullest capacity, that is prioritizing the tasks. As already discussed, if we are expected to do educational stuff with our presence away from our family members and near and dear ones, in a city unknown and in an environment unasked, we must prioritize it at its supreme expectations. And I am inhesitant to mention कि बिना ये 3 चीज किए बिना खाना मत खाओ, फोन मत देखो, कुछ मत करो दूसरा. And if you practice in this way, I'm sure you will reach the target of 1 hour 1 chapter and benefit from this. मेरा फोन ही आ गया, वो पुराने दोस्त का कॉल ही आ गया, थोड़ा रिफ्रेश होने के लिए पबजी खेलने को बैठा तो उसमें थोड़ा मैच एक्सटेंड ही हो गया. We are grown up people. We are the responsible and accountable citizens and medicos and human beings of this planet and this nation. We are the most youthful nation and we are expected to enrich this resource of humanness and human manpower of our country by the means of qualifying ourselves, excelling ourselves in the education system that we exist. And I feel that individual approach and attempt to excel would be a step towards national accountancy and integrity. And this would indirectly be a great service of you to the society and to the nation. क्योंकि जब तुमको पता है क्या करना है क्या नहीं करना है, you will definitely do only good to the society. So keeping these long and far-sighted aims and objectives, set your standards and don't compromise with them at any cost under any influences. People may say कुछ नहीं होता है, पास हो जाते हैं, things like that. Time once gone can never come back. This century is a century of time, talent and trust. If you can maintain these 3 things and win over them, circumstances are yours and success is also yours as redefined in the beginning of this discussion. Last but not the least, I would like to mention that we are in a very noble profession and the society expects a lot from us. Our accountability starts right from now. If we are able to manage our time meticulously, if we are able to prioritize things in a better way, I think we would be great learners, we would be great communicators, we would be great clinicians, we would be great teachers, and we would be a great Indian medical graduate. I am thankful to you for your patient listening. On behalf of our organization, the Medical Education Department, I am thankful to the volunteers who have helped and coordinated to make this meeting a successful enterprise and associated requirements as well. Now the floor is open for discussion and any questions. Thank you.